Happy Election Week, Harbor Shores. I trust that this video finds you resting firmly in the sovereign hand of God, who is in control of all things. This week we find ourselves recapping Pastor Chris's sermon from this past week on 1 Corinthians chapter 4. And I don't know about you, but what stuck out to me the most was what we found in verse 1 of this chapter, which says, "This is how one should regard us, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God." That word servants is an interesting one in the Greek. It actually means under rower. It is the lowest form of servant or slave that there could possibly be. They have the lowest of the low as far as their duties. And Paul says that for believers, this is how we should be regarded. This is what our identity is, as servants of Christ in the lowest form and stewards of the mysteries of God. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't really sound like a job description or an identity that I want to walk in. And yet, over and over again in Corinthians, this is something that Paul calls our eyes back to. In 1 Corinthians 6:20, he reminds us that we were bought with a price. And again, he says that exact same language, that language of us being purchased or bought as a slave or a servant would be in 7:23, reminding the Corinthians that you are bought with a price. And Paul fleshes that out a little bit in Romans chapter 6 as well, in verse 18, where he says we are to regard ourselves as slaves to righteousness. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of times when I am serving Christ, I would love to say that I am doing it with the best motives in mind. But just like Pastor Chris revealed on Sunday, when I find myself doing things for Jesus, a lot of times it's a very mixed bag. I want to be noticed. I want to be praised. I want people to applaud me for my act of service or for the use of my gifts. I want you guys to come up to me at the end of a sermon and just tell me about how it was just so groundbreaking in your life. There's a part of me that desires that. And yet, as believers, we're called to something really different. We are called to be servants of Christ, carrying out the work of the one who bought us and redeemed us for his purposes, for his glory. And we are called to carry out the mysteries, the gospel message of who he is and what he accomplished. And yet so often we find ourselves about our own kingdom. We find ourselves about our own praise and our own glory. Or we find ourselves seeking the praise and the glory and the accolades that comes from the approval of man. And so this week, as we look at this verse, just this one single verse, is this how we regard ourselves? Is this how we view ourselves? As servants of Jesus, entrusted to carry out his message, his will, his desires. Because if it's not, then we have to have an honest conversation with our Creator, and we have to have a reality check of what we really view ourselves in light of who we are and in light of what he did for us. And so this was a really challenging verse for me this week. And honestly, when Chris was preaching, I missed the next couple verses. I had to go back and re-listen to what he said, because I was just stuck on how much this verse speaks right to where I'm at and what I need to focus on. So if that's you this week, let's prayerfully consider together Paul's perspective in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1. And let's ask ourselves honestly before God, is this our perspective of who we are as well? And if not, let's confess and repent of that and take on the identity that we are called to have as servants unto Christ, even though we are his sons, slave to righteousness, even though there's grace, so that we can live the lives and be the people that we have been called to be in Christ. Have a blessed week.